to people. And the focus of the Global Innovation Hub is to leverage innovation to serve people and planet. This is why we are very pleased to provide space for any debate and dialogue that is relevant to cities. So with this, I will hand over to the moderator of the panel. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Just checking, can you hear me all okay? No? No, you can't hear me. Okay, there you go. Thank you so much. Hopefully you can hear me now. Can you hear me? Good. Wonderful. Good afternoon all. It's absolutely wonderful to see you and welcome. My name is Jorn Lise. I'm a partner and global head of ESG at KPMG, as well as the work that we do right across the globe to support our clients on climate change. We believe passionately that we have a societal role to help our networks to convene, to connect, to partner with others who are equally as passionate as we are about accelerating climate action. In this program, which is NetZero Urban Program, we're partnering with United Cities to accelerate, to scale up the speed also to achieve net zero for cities. And to start off, I'm going to hand over to Joel Alexander Mills, who's a board member at United Cities. And Joel, I know you've got some fantastic experience in the past whereby you're now looking to use technologies developed in oil and gas industry to find solutions to combat the challenges of the sustainability of cities. So Joel, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'll use this microphone. I'm very pleased to be here to be representing as a board member of the United Cities Programme and the collaboration which has been going on for over a year now in really taking forward how KPMG and United Cities can really make a change in what we're working with. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how we're using this program and with the United Nations has created a KPI system for analysing what is a smart, sustainable city. And this comes out with 92 indicators. Now this was developed by 17 organisations together within the United Nations. Trying to get 2 organisations to work together in the United Nations is a headache, and I can say that personally. Trying to get 17 to work together is amazing, and it shows the commitment and it shows how much the United Nations want to help to push this forward. Now, we are incredibly lucky today to be able to have with us Olga from the UN, who is going to talk a little bit about, but it shows the commitment and the level at which the UN want to work with us. So with that, you're going to hear more from me later when we get into the digital twins, but I'm going to pass you directly over to Olga, who is here, and can we have the slides up to present what we're doing? Can I have the next slides, please? So as you see here, we're having Olga first of all, and Olga is here as the Under-Secretary General. That's quite an impressive title. And she is also the Executive Secretary for the UNEC. So as it shows, we have a really, really high-level guest here, and we're going to pass over to Olga to say a few words to introduce. Thank you very much, Olga. Thank you.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you for inviting me on behalf of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe to this great meeting. If I say Europe, we are just one of the 5 regional commissions that are in the United Nations system, and we are covering 56 member states, starting from Europe, Central Asia, Northern America. So it's quite a huge region with a big industrial capacity, with a mass of GDP of the global production, and with a mass of carbon emissions, of course. Okay, so what happens now on the cities level, because I'm very happy that we managed to introduce our local government agenda, so it means cities agenda, into our activities 3-4 years ago. So we are working with, we are organizing every year forum of mayors for the cities of the region, but also beyond our region. They are coming to Geneva, our cities in Geneva, and they work with us on different topics. But of course, green transition, net zero, energy transition, renewables, it's everything on, it's like our bread and butter of what we do. Why I am telling that? Because cities are important. Today we know 56% of the global population live in cities. And it is estimated that in 2050 there will be 70% of global population living in the cities. And if we add to that the growing global population, I heard that in 5 days we will be 8 billion of people on the planet. So I don't know who calculated it so precisely, but okay, these are official numbers. So we see what burden it brings to the cities and the local governments. And of course, technologies. Recently I was lucky and I visited the United Cities in their seat, in Alesund, in Norway. And I saw a great technologies that can help. But more than about that, because then, Joe, you can better speak about it than me, your technologies. I would like to speak what we are doing. It is this soft power of standards, norms, policy guidelines, frameworks that we are producing for our 56 member states in our region. And of course, not only for them, but together with them, because experts from 56 countries come together in Geneva, and we are the platform where the standards, norms, guidelines, frameworks are produced. And if we are able to help to change legislation towards green transition, then it is this soft power of standard, invisible soft power, but I believe it's very efficient and effective for our member states, our cities in our region, to help them to bring this change. So I can demonstrate, I have here some numbers with me, I can read it to you, because we have many products. I could speak till tomorrow about what we do for cities. But one very important, I believe, in our energy division, there were produced guidelines for energy efficient buildings. And why we want to speak about it, let me demonstrate it by the numbers, because speaking about energy consumption, so buildings and construction sector accounted for 36% of the global final energy consumptions. Additionally, they accounted for 37% of energy-related CO2 emissions, according to the United Nations Environmental Program. So what are the challenges to reaching high-performance buildings is that 82% of people who will be added to the planet by 2030 live in countries without building energy codes, okay? Or only voluntary codes. A little bit on more positive note, over 65% will live in countries that have nationally determined contributions that mention building energy efficiency and or building codes to improve energy performance. So buildings were subject of our interest already 10 years ago, and we are working on producing those guidelines for our member states. And you can imagine the complexity of that, because you need to bring not only legislation through the national governments, then you need to bring it to the local governments. Then you need to speak with the private sector, that is very much important, you know, constructors, engineers, architects, to bring it together. So, and then of course consumers, because we are always looking what we are doing, everything we are doing for people, so that the cities, that those buildings are livable, and of course energy efficient, but with net zero emissions. We want to bring till 2050 that all buildings will be like net zero emissions producing. If we have to achieve it in 2030, we need to have 50% of those buildings. Well, is it really? If we have to reach Paris Agreement commitment, okay? So this is very difficult task, And then, of course, we are helping those cities and countries to make capacity building, experience sharing, and here it comes when we have a country that has developed technologies, we try to transfer those technologies to countries that they need it. So it's very complex and long-term goal, but we are very strongly working towards that. Of course, I can add, just now I am coming from the panel on critical raw materials. If we need to make this green transition or net zero, if we have to make this digitalization and digital technologies, we know how much more of critical raw materials we will need. Not speaking just about the lithium for batteries, but we need chrome, manganese, graphite. Okay, and that's a problem because calculating the transition to renewable energies, we will not have so much critical raw materials available. And if we had them, we need to really use them in a sustainable way. So using all the circular economy principles, reuse, use less, and well, it's a real problem, and we are speaking exactly about financing. So financing in all this is so important. Speaking about innovative financing, bringing the private sector, bringing the science together, bringing the facts on the table. So this is quite complex task, and maybe in the discussion I will better react than just speaking just from my side. So thank you for this space, for speaking to you, and I'm looking forward to your eventual questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Olga. It's so nice to have you here, and we're so proud you want to come and be part of this conversation and part of this journey forward. So that's really exciting. So with that, we're now going to pass over to a good friend, Stine Lise, who is actually here and representing KPMG and talking about how we've heard how we have this issue. We've heard how we have many problems in front of us, and we know how we can solve these problems, but we don't have the time. So we need to find a method to speed up time. And this method to speed up time means we need different solutions and different mechanisms to look at a strategy to take that forward. I'm going to pass over to Stine Lise to show you about how we can start to do that process. Over to you.
Wrong way. Thank you so much to both Joel and Olga for a great start of this day and a start of the launch of the NetZero Urban Program. And after Glasgow COP26, it was made a huge amount of pledges. And pledges are really great. But if there's no action behind it, nothing happens. And now we need action and we need speed. And KPMG, we are trying the best we can to make action happen. And we can't make that alone because the challenges we're facing, it's much too large to be fixed with one actor alone. So we're inviting all our clients, all our partners, alliance, to be part of this. And we do have some of them here today, and you will hear more about that from Johnson Controls, for instance. So we have a clicker behind there, so that's why I'm pointing them in, okay? So the journey we started is actually that we start to look at the cities. Because cities are, as Olga said, where the most people live, the most emission, the most need for energy, but it's also where we also use the largest amount of nature. So if we can fix the challenges in the cities, we probably can fix it everywhere. So we started with cities, and we are looking into technology. And Joel will tell you more about technology and the digital twin and how to actually simulate and predict the future using technology, so we don't choose the solutions that are based on assumption, but based on facts. Then we really need to work together. Unless we work together, cross-public and private sector, we will not succeed. And we need to act now. So we need to do investments as solutions as investable as possible, and then bridge capital to the investable solutions. And what we then are trying to do in KPMG is to act like matchmakers. We are 250,000 employees globally. That's a lot of people. If we can act like matchmakers all over the world, we probably will manage to do something with this missing middle. Because there already are a lot of good initiatives, and it is, as we said, a lot of pledges out there, but we do not manage to close this gap between these really ambitious but very concrete goals for net zero in 2050 and the UN SDGs for 2030. So that's where we're trying to have our position, and we are inviting all of you to be part of a NetZero Urban Program going forward to COP28 and beyond. What we have done, and what we also will tell you more about, is of course technology and knowledge. Because if we don't base our assumption and our choices on knowledge, that is not the best way forward. So the 11th, in 2 days, we will also launch the Net Zero Readiness Spotlight for cities. During COP26, KPMG launched the Net Zero Readiness for nations, but we are not done it for about 50 cities. And we are then telling actually what is the really hard thing to abate to not manage to reach the goals that we're trying to reach. And I will let you know more about that the 11th, but it's not launched yet. It will be launched the 11th. So how this looks is actually partnership. It's technology, and it is purpose. Because we need a purpose for our business, but we need to see solutions together that really also is both gaining the society and the business at the same time, and of course all the inhabitants in the cities. And we have put out some, they're not that bold, but they are at least a little bit bold goals. And we're trying by 2030 our ambition to collect together 25 billion in investment in dollars, 100 solutions that are replicable so that we can spread them all over the world. Of course, it will be adjustments. And we also would like to have 10,000 cities on the track to get to how to get to net zero in 2050. That means they need to have the roadmap. And you've probably seen a lot of the news lately that even though a lot of us have pledges and have goals for net zero by 2050, our numbers are picked apart. We won't get there unless we have a concrete roadmap and know our numbers. We are concentrating on these 5 different areas: mobility, buildings, waste, water, and energy, because they are both the one that have the highest emission, but also the hardest to abate. So this is the goals that we are inviting everybody to join in to see if we can reach. And we are, as we said, not doing this just to give you a challenge today. We are building on insight. We're trying to translate into solutions that are investable and also our business. Connecting dots from all parts of the world. And then we really want to start here at COP27 based on what we already have done. I will soon show you a little bit about that. And then work and be very transparent and be very clear if we manage to take some action or if we don't. So then we go forward to COP28, and definitely you should be asking KPMG, did you achieve anything? Did you get any partners with you? And what did you actually do? So please ask us that in COP28. So what we have done and already started with is definitely working with digital twins, and Jorn will soon show you how. We have started and do a lot of insights, and we are going to build this decarbonization innovation exchange platform where we are going to merge and bridge together capital and investable solutions. Working together cross sectors with the systemic thinking, not the silo thinking, is the really important thing here. And I was supposed to have a former Prime Minister on my side here because we have been working with him for a little while on how to work on mobility in Egypt. And we are now going to work with one municipality in Egypt, testing out as a pilot, using digital twins and technology to see how we actually can do something with the mobility issues that is quite high. So this is just a saying from him. So sorry, he's not here. He was supposed to be here. But anyway, this was all that I wanted to say. And then I really want to give the word back to you, Jorn, and you can show some of the digital twin in a hurry.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to talk to you about digital twins. I'm going to try and explain what digital twins in under 10 minutes. So hold on to your hats, and I'm going to probably show you more data than you're going to see in the rest of this year in the next 10 minutes, but it should be fun. Okay, let's go. Right, straight into it. We've seen the process. We've seen the different stages we need to go through, and there's two areas. You can use the digital twin for all areas, but there's two areas which the digital twin really steps out and really works forward. So if we just step through and show that, you see that the number two, the insight, that is where you're really getting a use of the digital twin, where you can understand at high speed. We can't wait to try things out in real life. We have to try things out in a digital twin, and that allows us to speed things up to another level. We can then, as we're using these digital twins, start to bring in the data and see, are we going in the right direction? Is this making the solution we were aiming at the speed we were aiming at? It covers all of the others, but these are the two key areas we're really focusing on. Okay, next slide, please. So why use a digital twin? We all know computers are amazing at data processing, far better than any of us, and they're getting better and better all the time. But computers aren't creative. We're creative humans. But the problem is today, if you want to use that data, you've got to be a data scientist and go into that data. We need to make that data available for everybody. We need to make that data child's play. And that's what the digital twin is. It's a bridge. It's a connection between humans and machines. Next slide, please. So this is what we're doing. We're connecting us together to understand that data in a simple way that everybody can bring it together in one place. Next slide. Now this is probably one of the really important points of why using a digital twin. And this is the thing I want you to remember. Humans understand data not twice as fast, not 3 times as fast, but 60,000 times faster through imagery than we do through text. The idea that we're doing everything through text is just madness. We need to think differently, and we need to work in a different way. So let's take us forward with that. Next slide, please. So what we're doing is we're taking all this messy data, we're organizing that messy data, and then we're putting it together into a visual setup that even my 9-year-old daughter could understand. And this is what it is, that we can all make decisions based on understanding the data from all the different places. There is no industry standard in data. Data is coming from everywhere. The only common denominator is its geographical location. So we can actually bring that in, put it into the digital twin, and as Stine said, it's really, really hard to try and make improvements in just silos. You put all those silos together and suddenly we can see systems approach which give us huge improvements. So we're looking at the solutions, we're looking at the capital, and we're looking at the cities, and we see the digital twin to be a tool in the middle which allows us to connect that up and speed up the process to get to those sustainable development goals much faster than we are today. So this is the glue in the middle, connecting things up and allowing us to test things. So next slide. So what I'm going to do now is take you into some digital twins. Now the digital twins I'm showing you are actually not videos, they're just recordings from the digital twin itself, and they've been made very, very fast. So we're going to straight away jump in here to Sharm el-Sheikh, and we're actually going to start off here in COP. So let's play the video in the background. So this is COP. If you're anything like me, you've spent the last day trying to find your way around. We all probably needed a digital twin to start off with. Now this we created just in a week before we came here. So we can create these digital twins at really high speed, and that's the value of it. Now what we're doing here is we're looking at a systems approach, and in this systems approach we picked out food and agriculture, energy and water, and we wanted to see how they were working together. Now there is a plan here to put in 2 new solar parks which are going to be used for many things, but one of them is desalination, and a solar park like that would make an area of 750 football fields of desalination, which just so happens to be that area we've picked out there. Actually using technologies, and liquid clay is one example there, using technologies we can halve that desalination, and that one effect in the system changes the system completely. And this is what we're trying to show. If you can bring in all the data from different areas, you can make a really big change. Right, I told you to hold on to your hat, so we're flying again onwards. So we've now gone back to COP last year. So we've gone over to Scotland, and here actually we've picked out Aberdeen, and we're flying through the city of Aberdeen. Now Aberdeen, as one of their really big challenges, is trying to go away from fossil fuel in buildings, which we've heard Olga talk about, over into renewable technologies. Now here in Aberdeen, they've got a very interesting setup. They've been working very hard with decommissioning of the oil and gas setups. And that is taking all of that oil and gas stuff and actually taking it to land and decommissioning it. But what we can be using is using it as a transition. So using those same technologies, those same setups, to move things forward and go over to clean solutions like wind power. So here we see some of the wind setups. We see that connected into the grid. But the grid is not going to be able to solve this problem without using batteries. You see here now real data graphing from what the energy is produced from those wind farms and then the battery take up, and how the batteries can be used and help us to get to a transition from 80% fossil fuel to 80% renewable energy within only the next few years. So we're really seeing how this technology can allow us to speed us up. Right, are you still with me? Because we're going on. Right, we're now going back to Norway, where this technology was developed and where I live. So this is actually diving into one of the simulators, and here in the background we see those KPIs, those systems which was developed by the UN organizations to allow us to understand how we can take a city forward. And what we're doing here is we're taking the city of Stavanger and we're taking the whole city to net zero within the next 8 years. This is showing us the emissions of all of the mobility today and then how it is going to be in the future for the road-based transport. And actually the road-based transport, they've got a good solution. But here we show the vessels and now we show the buildings, and both of these are still a long way away from being solved, and we can test out the solutions. A lot of this is going to come from energy from the oceans, and we can test that setup. And then here we're looking at offsetting. This area of green here would be to use seaweed to offset the remaining CO2 in the city. That's never going to work. So we need to look at other solutions, and this is carbon capture, and this is another technology which has been developed, but it's seeing how all these solutions can be put together to really help us to move forward. I have shown you a demonstration which really should take 20 minutes in about a minute. So I hope I've blown your mind, but come on Friday and you'll see it in more detail. Right, we're still moving on. So bear with us. We're going now to next year. Next COP is going to be in Dubai. Again, we've put this digital twin together in just a couple of days before we came over here. So we've built up the digital twin, and actually Dubai is going through an amazing setup. It's going to be, and is more and more, a tourist destination where the population is growing intensely in the next few years. This is the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, and that can hold a population of about 18,000 people. That's like a small city just in one building. This city is, as I said, changing. We need to understand how it's changing. We can put in the road networks, we can put in all the different systems, and we can understand the challenges they're going to have in the future, going from 3.5 million people to nearly 5.2 million people just in a few years' time. Let me just use the digital twin now, and I'm going to drop in that Burj Khalifa building you saw. So we're taking that in from the model. Now that's 90 Burj Khalifa buildings. Just to give you the idea of how much the city of Dubai is going to change, that's how much would need to be built if you were just doing it in Burj Khalifa buildings within the next 8 years. This really is a challenge ahead of us, but we have opportunities to solve this, to really work forward. So here you see a whole systems approach, and I really hope you're ready to join. And already this morning, I've had a career who is very, very keen to do a project with us and to get things going. So we're already seeing that there's many, many more cities who want to join and take this process forward. So I think for now, can we just get the next slide, please? So this is how we're seeing this as really helping us to speed forward this transition to the Sustainable Development Goals. And I really want to ask you all to join in this program. I'm going to pass back over to KPMG in a minute. We're going to have a panel debate and move this forward. But for me, for now, I'm going to say thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to pass over to Jorn.
Thank you, Joel. I hope you are still with us. I think we know what we need to do. Like, we're pushing for speed and for time. We know what to do, but how are we going to do that? So for that, I would love to invite a fantastic panel. Andy, join me in front, Renee, and also Maurizio. And I am happy to discuss with you, if we look at what is needed by 2030 and by 2050, what are the solutions we need? What are the actors we need to bring around the table? And what is the speed and scale that we need to achieve, and how we are going to do that? So I'm happy to pass the mic to each of you. And I would love to start with Renee. And Renee, please present yourself really briefly, like Renee Kizar from Johnson Controls. What is Johnson Controls doing? And what are your solutions? What could they bring into this complexity, where we also need the creativity to push the needle? Renee.
Well, thank you, and that is a hard act to follow, but I will just talk a little bit about what we do, hopefully answer some of the questions, but I first really thank you, KPMG, for bringing us all together, because I think this is a nut we're all trying to crack, and it's conversations like this, and quite frankly, the energy that you're bringing to it, that I'm not feeling like I have 10 years, 20 years to get there. I'm feeling like I have minutes more than anything else. So I'm Renee Kizar from Johnson Controls. I have a really fantastic job. I lead our sustainability program globally, and so I wear two hats. One, I'm going to talk to you about what we do as a business and how sustainability is integrated into what we're offering our customers, but then I'm also responsible for our own net zero journey. So I'll talk about that second. So Johnson Controls, for those of you who may not be familiar, we are in the built environment. We're a global leader in the building technology. So all the HVAC, fire security, indoor air quality, everything you see within a building, we can do. So we show up at about 90% of the world's most iconic buildings. So there's not much that you aren't going to touch. Actually, I took a picture. There were 6 of our technicians I didn't even expect to see. We installed 50 HVAC units just for the COP environment. So it's really interesting of how much, when you start to peel it back, where Johnson Controls shows up. So we do the building technology, and then we also have digital capabilities. So we combine it with a digital capability, not to the extent that you are with digital twins, but we talk about our own digital twin. So what we can do is, in the design of buildings, we can actually forecast how that building will operate, that it transitions into the building operation, and we have real-time optimization. It could be of just the energy efficiency and how we're using energy. It also could be when those lights shut off and when the AC shuts off in parts of buildings where people are not, where there's no inhabitants. That's also our controls in action. We also have the ability, we've actually just launched an open source that's called OpenBlue digital platform, that we not only run Johnson Controls software, but we can also invite in best-in-class software throughout the entire building operation. So it could be water management, it could be increased indoor air quality, it could be even increased ways that you could manage your loads given the different renewable energy options that are available. So we actually do have that as an open source. We're not the only ones as well, but I could see that actually as an opportunity for everything that you just put up on the screen. A little bit of what we need, and I'll talk to you about, again, our journey and where we've been. So Johnson Controls, and what I just explained to you, this has been our business for over 100 years. We go in, we talk to customers, we take over the operation of their building. It's an as-a-service model. And then we get to work on reducing energy, water, and carbon, right? So carbon is all part of the energy, water conservation. Customers are happy, inhabitants are happy. That's our business model. Well, the emergence of the decarbonization, we thought, listen, this isn't something for us to kind of keep to ourselves, but we need to make it public. So in 2021, we launched our net zero buildings, Open Blue Net Zero buildings. And so what we put forth is it's an 8-step process that essentially now here's our playbook for the management of buildings. I can go it's all public and online, but some of the steps you start at the basics of what are your measurements, what is your carbon, and what are your key business drivers driving that carbon? How do you set a target? We talk about this, we call sustainable infrastructure. So what units do you need? What could you replace? We can put you on a roadmap. You don't have to do everything in 1 year, but what's your roadmap to start taking those emissions and bringing them down? We also look at renewable energy and what makes sense for where you're located, like you were showing here. And then also at the end that I think is pretty important is the verification that we achieve the results. So through the digital, it could be the digital twin or the digital tracking, real time, I have a dashboard of our 1,300 facilities. In real time, I can look to see what our operation was like last month, last year, and are we really tracking the way that we think we are? So we also offer that to our customers. So as part of so now I'm going to take that internal. After we launched this Net Zero buildings, I said, wait a minute, we have 1,300 facilities we have 1,300 facilities globally. I have 100,000 employees. I'm supposed to get to 55% scope 1, 2 reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2040. So we, in essence, we're a disparate city, but we are a city of ourselves, and how do we bring ourselves and draw down that carbon? So we just went through, it took about 6 months, and we prioritized 8 manufacturing sites to have us hit that 55% reduction by 2030. It's not as much of a promotion of Johnson Controls, but just to show how this works in action. And there was a lot of debate. And on the financing side, we didn't buy into it because we're selling it. We actually had a customer team of myself, global operations, EHS, and finance. And our sustainability team, that external team, came and sold to us the program. It includes financing. And the financing mechanism, because as a CapEx, way too expensive. We put it into an as-a-service, an OpEx model, that annual cost, our annual savings outweighed the annual cost. So it was a way that we could look at financing in a way where it's not just a burdensome investment, but in a way that we could actually make this real. So just want to take you through think about all the corporates, fill in the blank cities is what we're trying to do here. We're all on this journey together, and it's not dissimilar to all of the activity in play. So for me, 2 things of what we need, and then I'll pass the mic. 2 things. So one is I think we need the cities. Like I said, this has been in play for decades, hundreds of years, or 100 years for us. But we need cities to come to the table and understand that, we work on a timeline. So, we need the data. What do you want to accomplish in the first year, second year, 5th year, right? We work as businesses pretty short term. So how do we meet in the middle with what your planning might be versus what we can offer? Just to make sure that we keep everyone engaged. The second big, and I will say, a piece that we're really focused on is it's our slice of the just transition. So quite frankly, everything that we're presenting, there are simply not enough people to design, construct, retrofit all of the buildings and spaces that we're talking about. So we're investing quite heavily actually through our foundation with colleges to actually build programs, accreditations, certifications, and skills for people to actually do the work that we're talking about. Johnson Controls is a large part of that 100,000 workforce that we have. Those technicians are also involved with the colleges. They're building the program, they're training the students, and they actually bring those students out on jobs and teach them what this looks like. And they're not Johnson Controls employees in the end. They could choose to come work for us, but we're doing this to really enable, a quarter of the greenhouse gas emissions. We're trying to enable the next generation of what these good paying technical jobs look like. So also the piece of who's going to do the work, more than just us sitting around a COP, is going to be a big component.
Thank you so much, Renee. Talking about cities and bringing to the table, I have with me also Mauricio Rodas, who's the former mayor of Quito in Ecuador. Mauricio, you've seen the public side, you've seen the private side, you've also seen financing. If we talk about complexity and the solutions we need, what is your experience from the last couple of years? How do we get the cities around the table? And how do we achieve that speed and scale that is needed?
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be part of this conversation. So I think that if we are all aware about the key role of cities on tackling climate change, because they are responsible for more than 70% of CO2 emissions, we need to realize that unfortunately they have to face an international financial system that is country-focused. It is not city-focused. That international financial system has not adjusted to the new urbanized world we live in. And it's a must to push forward reforms to that financial system in order for cities to be able to access the necessary resources to undertake the kind of infrastructure transformation that's needed for them to become drivers in the battle against climate change. And let me tell you my personal story as mayor. I was very much into the climate agenda as mayor of Quito, and I measured our level of emissions, and we realized that our largest source of emissions was our mobility system. So that's where we had to focus our efforts on. And that's why we decided to build the first metro line in the country, which was, of course, a huge endeavor, particularly because we didn't have a good political relationship with the national government. Pretty much the president wanted to kill me. So in that regard, it was extremely challenging to accessing resources internationally when local governments need a national government's guarantee. A national government's guarantee that may not be granted because of political rivalries like the ones the president had with me, not me with the president. But the fact is that when we tried to get finance for the metro project, we had to confront this very challenging reality. How to get those guarantees to access resources from multilateral development banks. It was very challenging. At the end, after a long struggle, we managed to get those guarantees because we were able to mobilize public opinion in favor of the metro project. So the government was pushed for, granting those guarantees. And at the end, we also managed to set up a very innovative financial scheme. We got funding from the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, the European Investment Bank, and the Latin American Bank all together, which was in itself something quite innovative, having 4 multilateral banks working together. But probably what was most innovative was the fact that the policies that applied to the project were the bank's policies and not national law, which made the project much more strict in terms of transparency, in terms of social and environmental safeguards, and at the end, that helped to meet the budget, to meet the calendar, which, as you know, is very hard when it comes to large infrastructure projects. So this was a success story, but we were very lucky. Many cities around the world are just not able to get financial resources because they confront these kind of realities. And that's why it is so important to innovate, to come up with new direct financial facilities for cities to undertake climate resilient projects. Fortunately, there are great news, more and more. Actually, this morning, Ars Rock launched the Cool Capital Stack as a new financial mechanism to support cities and even the private sector to undertake extreme heat-related actions. It's becoming the first financial facility exclusively focused on addressing extreme heat, which, as we know, is the climate-driven hazard that kills more people than any other. So this is the kind of good news that we need more, and I hope COP27 will become the perfect scenario to listen to this kind of news. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurizio. Andy, happy to come to you. Andy Deacon, co-managing director of the Global Covenant of Mayors. We need numbers. The Global Covenant representing more than 12,000 cities worldwide. How can these digital twins help those 12,000 cities to speed up, to accelerate? And apart from the digital twin, who else do we need around the table?
Very good. Thank you, Jorn. Always hard to follow Maurizio, but I'll give it a go. So as Jorn says, 12,500 cities across the world in the Global Covenant of Mayors Alliance. across multiple continents and cities of all shapes and sizes. And I think one of the things we need to be able to leverage digital twin technology to do is to bring some of the intermediary and smaller cities on board with where some of the larger cities are leading. I'm an avid reader of science fiction, including some fairly bad climate-related cli-fi. But I think the way in which we use digital twins can enable us to tell some of those local stories much more effectively. And I think in addition to numbers about the percentages of emissions that we can save, the number of buildings that we need to retrofit, the staggering amounts of carbon that we need to not emit into the atmosphere, then by presenting some of those images, you can really relate that to individual local circumstances. And I'm not a mayor, I've never been a mayor, but I've worked for a few. And they enormously value the ability to tell a good local story that resonates with their potential future electors. And I think digital twins have enormous power to be able to do that. When we talk about a net zero future at local level, at the moment there aren't a lot of mechanisms to explain to people what that looks like for their neighborhood, for their local area. And so we need to be leveraging the technology to do that for individual community groups, citizens, residents, energy cooperatives, and others who are working very closely with local governments around the world, but to bring those partners on board in sharing that picture. Some of the earlier graphics from KPMG colleagues also identified that role for the bridge in the middle. At the moment, there's very much a view that cities are coming from one side, an increasing number. So of the 12,500 global covenant cities, around half of those now have a fully developed sustainable energy and climate action plan, CCAP. We need the ability to move from citywide action plans to implementable, financeable projects. You talked about accelerating action enormously. And one of the things we need to be able to do is to move from a citywide action plan to a series of 3 or 4 projects that are really securing the financing and moving ahead. And to do that, there's an enormous role for intermediaries in the middle to translate from city action plans to finance and to be that bridge between the work that some of the multilateral and international financial institutions are looking for, as well as private sector capital, and to be able to work with local city leaders, community groups and others to bring those projects forward. That's a growing market, if you like, but it's a real gap at the moment. That translation engine between those two will be a key role in the coming years. Like you, we're very keen that this is a COP that's focused on implementation. A number of projects and reports launching next week. Very pleased to be partnering with the Global Innovation Hub here to advance that activity on the basis of a fundamental understanding of human needs. Shelter is a key one of those, and action on buildings will be key as part of that. But we really need to massively grow that cohort of translators in the middle who can link local action plans to available finance.
I'm looking at the time, and unfortunately we need to slowly wrap up. What we didn't tell you, we didn't of course just invite you for the panel. As Stine said, we are looking already at Dubai next year and the years beyond. So we're happy to come back to all of you and everyone in the audience to see the next couple of weeks and months how we are going to work together. What are the different solutions, networks, capital we can bring together? Because it's not just about a presentation, it's really about a process, how we're going to find each other, connect those solutions, and really speed and scale up. I'll leave it there. I want to thank the panel, and I'm happy to pass the floor to my colleague, Richard Trelfall.
Jorn, thank you so much. I hope you're now as excited as I am. I had a coffee before I came into this panel. I didn't need it. The level of energy in this room has been better than anything I've seen out here all of the last few days. So I'm super excited about this. But now this is about the call to all of you. Thank you for joining us today, but this is not about today. This is about the collaboration that we're looking for going forward. If we can flip to the next, just leave it on that slide, that would be absolutely fine. We said at the beginning that we don't have all the answers. Every week I send an email out across KPMG that keeps emphasizing two things. One, we're running out of time. As of today, 1.5 degrees warming above pre-industrial levels is now 6 years, 8 months, and 12 days away. So we've got to move really, really fast. Secondly, I say we need to collaborate. And we really believe that there is this enormous power in cities to make this massive difference. And we see the role of digital twins to connect the innovation and the finance and the needs of cities together. But we need everybody to come together to help us with this. So our ask is for you to go away and consider, hopefully agree to join up to the NetZero Urban Program. There should be a QR code on the next screen over there, which will take you through to our website where you can sign up your organization to come with us on this journey. We don't know what you can bring to this because we don't have the answers. But what we are determined to do is create the platform that allows us to help do all of our bit to drive the world to net zero. Thank you very much.